If you believe that it's not possible that a stranger pays you on the first sales call, or if you believe that even like a corporate client will never ever close with you on a first call, then you will get that belief confirmed over and over again. However, if you believe that these things are possible in principle, only that you have not yet developed the skills to achieve them, then you will start asking different questions. And the best question to ask would be, what do I need to do so that this becomes possible for me? Because the truth is, it is possible to close somebody on the first sales call. It is possible to get a meaningful commitment from even a large B2B client on the first call. And so it's all about figuring out how to do that. Imagine that you had the chance to speak to Tony Robbins over Zoom, and he would offer you to be your coach and mentor. And let's also imagine that he would quote you a fee that you could afford. The only condition would be is that you need to sign up with him then and there. Would you do it? You'd probably say yes, as would tens of thousands of other people. In the same way, imagine your dream corporate client, somebody who you believe would never close on the first call, and then pick your favorite corporate titan, whether that's Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, and imagine that this dream client of yours would have the possibility to work with that titan. Well, for sure they would close on the first call. And the rule is and should be that as long as something is not impossible by the laws of physics or mathematics, then it is possible. And the fact is that you don't need to be Tony, Jeff, or Elon to make a sales call go in the direction you want it to go. The people who can do it simply have figured out how to create their own reality on a sales call. They have created the context and environment on that first call that allows the client to comfortably say, okay, let's do it. And this difference between where you are now and a person who can actually do this kind of close, that consists of 4 fundamental steps: belief, identity, framing, and skills. And in this video, we will cover these 4 steps. And if you follow them, you will be able to have many more sales calls go your way and not be at the mercy of your prospects. My name is Michael Bohannes, and I help consultants, B2B agencies, and B2B solopreneurs to build client acquisition systems and to defeat limiting beliefs, especially as far as sales is concerned. Most people we work with are experts, and they haven't developed very good sales skills because they are experts. So usually clients come to them, but many of our clients come to us because they want to go beyond referral. They don't want to be at the mercy of word of mouth. And so they want to build client acquisition systems, which means you need to learn how to sell better. And so we take them through these 4 steps. Step 1 is belief. At the very foundation, you have to believe that it's possible in principle. And why do we even want to close on the first call? It's not like this is such a holy grail that we are pursuing here. But the thing is, if you frame the call in a way that you expect it to close, the client will push back sufficiently anyway, so you might not actually close in the first call, but it should be your ideal, because why waste time? Nobody says that a sales cycle has to last for 3 months. If it can last for 2 meetings, why not aim for that? And the more you try to frame the first sales call as one where you can actually close, where you can make a meaningful commitment, get a meaningful commitment from the client, then all the better for you. It might actually not work out for the first call, but who cares if it's then 3 calls? At least it's not 3 months. The thing is that many people don't approach sales calls in this way. They start a call by thinking, well, it's just a getting to know each other call. Let's see what will happen, right? This kind of vague approach that doesn't really lead anywhere. And if you suggested to them to close on that first call, they would say, they would just laugh, and it's just impossible. It's just not how it works in my industry. I have a 3 months to 6 month sales cycle. No way can I close on the first call. Well, if that's what you believe, then that's what's going to happen. Your sales cycle will be 3 to 6 months long. In that case, we don't even need to go into the further steps, because belief that it is possible to close much faster is at the foundation of this. It's at the foundation of creating the reality of your sales call. And when I say close, I don't necessarily mean that every single time you need the VP of operations of a large multinational company to on the call, whip out their credit card and wire you $50,000 then and there on the call. That's not how it goes. But when I say close, I mean anything that is a meaningful commitment from their side. It could, for example, be agreement to work on a small project together with the instructions that you should send them an invoice and you can start working, a firm commitment from their side. It could also be, although I'm not a huge fan of this, but it could simply also be you speak to the COO, and the next step, agreed and penciled into the calendars, is an in-person meeting with the CEO and maybe the CFO, where you will make them an in-person pitch, right? It's already clearly a step up from the first call. What it cannot be, what is definitely not a step up, is a statement like, well, let's continue the conversation. This was really valuable. Thank you so much for your time. And please send us a proposal. Sending a proposal without a clear timeline of when are we going to get together again, and ideally with a higher up decision maker, doing something like that is total death zone for any consulting engagement. You should never do that. So it needs to be some kind of a low risk offer, ideally, anything that allows them to make the commitment on the first call. It's not going to be the huge 6-figure amount, but a 4-5-figure project where you can show your skills that allows them to retreat, maybe even a money back guarantee, where they have the ability to save face in case you end up being not competent at your job. You have to look at it from their point of view. Doing that, like offering these kind of low risk offers to them, that is the key to getting commitment on the first call. And that needs to be possible somehow. I've yet to find a scenario where coming up with an option like this, coming up with a low risk offer is impossible to conceive, and ultimately impossible to close. And as long as you believe, yes, there must be a way to make this happen, I just need to figure it out, I just need to hack my way through the jungle, then we have the first step taken. You believe that it's possible. Step 2 is identity. You need to become the person who can. And this area is unfortunately so tainted by a lot of woo-woo peddlers out there that it has a very bad reputation. But it's still true. Identity matters. How you see yourself matters. You cannot hustle your way to $1 million in revenue with a scarcity mentality, bad work practices, being constantly distracted, cutting corners for clients, and so on. You need to become a different kind of person, someone who can. I'll cover this topic in more depth in an upcoming video, but for now, suffice to say that the way how to construct a new persona, new identity for you, is by simply writing down a couple of characteristics of what this person does in 2 main areas. One is the virtue area. So for example, you could say that a millionaire consultant is someone who is extremely knowledgeable in their area of expertise, approaches 100 prospects every day, is perfectly prepared for every sales meeting, dresses well, and keeps their workplace tidy. So in this case, you list virtues that your new character abides by. And the other side of the identity coin is how you allow other people to treat you. For example, you could say that you won't spend time with negative people, won't attend sales calls with unqualified prospects, won't do virtual coffee meetings because your time is valuable, won't accept invites to networking events. So that is the boundaries portion of your identity. You define how you allow others to treat you. And once you've created this list of identity characteristics, then you gradually become that person by abiding by these rules, by ticking those boxes, by not acting against them. And once you more or less inhabit that identity, and by the way, it's not going to be perfect, right? Your old self will still keep reaching out to you with its tentacles and trying to drag you back. But once you have embodied that more or less, you will approach sales calls very differently. Most importantly, you will never enter them with a subservient attitude. That is the biggest problem, that you subconsciously, but also you transport that message in the meeting, put yourself below the prospect, that you see them as sort of your savior who, by virtue of dangling the money carrot in front of you, have the key to your happiness. Because you inhabit that new identity, you will understand that the sales call is simply a meeting of equals, of a professional with a skill and of a client with a problem. And the sales call is simply the forum to figure out if there is a match, if what you offer fits their needs. And if you do, then you agree to work together. It's as simple as that. But this kind of approach to the sales call is only possible if you truly inhabit that identity. It will not work if you have cut corners before the call, if you're unprepared, if you just now wiped your mouth with your t-shirt and it's just below the line of what the camera can see, and you are in a disorganized, disheveled office. In that case, you will not be congruent with your new identity, and you will, during the call, slip back into old versions of yourself. And instead, when you act in accordance with someone who can close clients on the first call, you will have a high opinion of yourself. You will not allow others to disrespect you or to take your time for granted. And that will unlock the possibility to actually close them on the first call. That is why identity is so important. Step 3 is framing. And that is somewhat related to the topic of identity, but it's a more of an active agent. Identity is something how you are, and the framing of the call is how you craft a specific situation. Many consultants approach their sales calls as if they are job interviews, especially if the client is a large company. They allow the prospect to lead the call, to ask them questions about their background, their qualifications, their case study, their skill set, and of course about their day rate. In this job interview frame, the consultant is basically a supplicant and the prospect is the emperor who either puts their thumbs up or thumbs down. Well, this frame is simply the consequence of allowing the prospect to impose that frame on you. So what is a frame? It's a way how to shape specific human interactions. Social situations always come with a specific frame depending on the scenario. When you meet your doctor in the doctor's office, it's a completely different frame than when you meet them at the supermarket. You're in a different setting, in a different context. I'm sure you know somebody really charismatic who's always at the center of attention, who just, when they enter a room, everybody looks at them and everybody flocks around them. That is the ability to impose their frame on everybody else. Like, they are leading the conversation. They even dictate the topics. They dictate on what topics are being talked about. If they've had enough of one topic, they say, oh, let's just move on, right? Those kinds of people, very good at imposing their frame. And many social interactions have frames colliding, and the frame of the stronger person wins. And that matters especially in the business context. For example, when a consultant enters a sales call and allows the prospect to treat them like a job candidate, it simply means that the prospect's frame has won. The consultant wasn't able to keep their frame, and their frame crumbles, if they even had a frame to begin with. Let's look at an example of how a sales call can be framed as a job interview. Consultant: hi, John. Prospect: hi, Frank. Good to meet you. Thanks for jumping on. My pleasure, John. How are you today? I'm good, thank you. Where are you calling from? I'm in Miami, Florida. How about yourself? I'm in Houston, born and bred. Ah, that's great. Yeah, so thank you for scheduling the call. Can we maybe start by you telling me something a little bit about yourself? What's your background? What have you been doing so far? And how do you think you can help us? Of course, John. So look, I'm a CPA by trade. I went to the University of Maryland, graduated with distinction, then worked my way up News Corp. And then I quit to start my own business because I discovered that many small media companies actually need a part-time CFO. They need a fractional CFO. You see, that is the job interview frame winning. The prospect asked the question and the consultant just went with it, and thus accepting the prospect's frame. What would the situation look like if we imposed a different frame? What if instead of a job interview, we would frame the conversation like a consultation in a doctor's practice? When you are in pain, you don't go to the doctor and say, all right, doctor, tell me, what are your qualifications? Tell me a little bit about yourself and tell me how you think you could help me with this back pain of mine. That would be incredibly inappropriate. You would not do that. Instead, you're visiting an expert and allowing them to ask you questions after you've explained them your pain. So here's how that call would go. Hi, John. Hi, Frank. Good to meet you. Thanks for jumping on. My pleasure, John. How are you doing today? I'm good, thank you. Where are you calling from? I'm in Miami, Florida. How about yourself? I'm in Houston, born and bred here. Oh, that's great. I've actually never been. My wife is from Austin, so we frequently go to Texas, but never actually been in Houston. Anyway, John, so picking up from our conversation that we had on LinkedIn, you told me that the main problems that you have in the topic that we talked about is basically, number one, you don't have anyone to do your day-to-day accounting, and also you have a little bit of problems with the financial planning. Is that correct? Did I remember that correctly? Yes, that is correct. Great. And so the way I suggested we do the call, that I ask you a couple of questions. I still have a few open notes here that I would like to clarify with you. And if I believe that we could help you, then I'd love to tell you about how we work, what we do. And if you like that, then you could just sign up and we can start solving your problems. Is that all right? Does it sound like a good plan? Sure, let's go for it. That is now a completely different setup, and the call will go in a very different direction from the job interview frame that we had before. And that is the power of a frame. And it's so important to know that this frame is perfectly accessible to you, even if you are a one-man band, a one-woman band, a solopreneur consultant, and your client is Google or Tesla, right? It doesn't really matter that the power differential is so vastly different. Even if the president of the United States goes to see the doctor because he has a pain, then the doctor has the situational power. The doctor asks the questions. The doctor decides where the conversation is going. And in the same way, you as the expert have the situational dominance on the call, no matter if opposite you is Jeff Bezos or Joe Schmo. And a quick aside, in the case that I just acted out, it was quite easy, right? The consultant was able to take the reins of the conversation early on and impose his frame, and the prospect went along with it. However, sometimes it can happen that the prospect will start to try to impose their frame, and you have to oppose them. You have to push back. You have to make their frame disappear. And this is how it would go. Yeah, Frank, so thank you for scheduling the call. Can we start by you telling me a little bit about what you do, what's your background, and how you think you could help us? Totally, John. I'd love to tell you what we do and how we could help you. But just to save you the time, would it be okay? I would love to ask you a couple of questions first, and then I'll be able to tell you if we are a fit in principle, then we can discuss what we do. Would that be okay with you? Sure. fire away. You see? So an imposition of your frame doesn't have to be rude or aggressive in any way. It can even be a little bit sort of seemingly subservient. I don't want to be wasting your time, John. But this is how you control the framing battle. You calmly and politely insist that the call will go how you say it will go. And if one day someone keeps pushing back on you, they keep wanting to insist on imposing their frame, it's perfectly okay to say, listen, John, I just don't think that the call is going in the direction it should go, so I think it's best to end it here. That way, you're actually signaling that you are willing to lose the sale. Why? Because someone with your identity does not allow people to treat them this way. Just like a doctor would not tolerate somebody coming to them and asking for their credentials right up front, you do not allow somebody on a sales call where you are figuring out if they could be a fit with you. You don't allow them to be asking the questions up front. You ask the questions. This is your domain. You're the boss. So now we've covered 3 of the 4 steps. Number 1 is belief that it can be done in principle. Step 2 is having the right identity. Step 3 is entering the situation with the correct frame and keeping it. Now, let's get to the last step, and that is skills. Sales is very often simply about knowing what to say at the right moment and how to say it. And that is a skills question, right? Knowing the progression of a sales call. First discovery, then the pitch, then objection handling. Knowing how to make silence work for you. Knowing that you need to shut up after you mention the price. Knowing the principle and implementing the principle that sales is a transference of confidence. So focusing on projecting confidence that you can actually solve their problem. All of that, those are skills. Those are the nuts and bolts of your craft, and it's worth studying them in depth. Specifically, it's all about collecting the best ways how to phrase something in order to counter an objection that somebody throws your way. For example, when a prospect tells you, I need to think about it, which is probably the most frequent objection that you can get. Well, you need to research this. What is the best way of countering that? If you Google this, a million articles on this topic. There's videos that tell you how to answer the objection. I need to think about it. Well, study this. Listen to what the gurus say, figure out what response to this objection would be the best one in your case. Try different ones and see which one works best. Memorize it, know how to say it, and move to the next one, right? If you have a good response to every possible question that somebody can throw your way, then you have accumulated the skills necessary for step 4. And just like that, with these 4 steps, you have taken control. You are creating the reality of the sales call. And in the early days of doing that, of course, you will not be closing immediately on the first call, but the longer you do it, the more experience you gather, the more often you are used to using your frame, the more often it will happen that it's going to be even an absurd idea to not sign up on the first call. Like, you will be able to subliminally communicate the message of, listen, we just realized that you have the problem. I can help you. There's zero risk for you because we have a money back guarantee. Why do you want to delay this? It sounds even absurd, right? You would never ask Tony Robbins to send you a proposal, for God's sake, right? So it's like the closer you can get to this self-evident, we're a match, right? Why should we delay this? The faster you'll be on a journey to be able to close in the first call. And that is what the magic of framing and having good sales skills is all about. But in order to get there, you first need to believe that it in principle can happen, and you need to be the right person to do it. You need to be the person who can. So that's it. I hope it was useful. If we can help you build your client acquisition systems, and selling on Zoom is a big, big part of that. If we can help you with what I just discussed, then click the link in the description of the video. Or if you're listening to this on a podcast, look at the show notes. There's a link that gets you to a page. It's a sales funnel, classic stuff. You don't need to click on it if you don't want to, but I just wanted to open the option for you. I love doing these videos in any case because it helps me to sharpen my thinking. There's also what we teach our clients, right? Do long form content, do videos so that you think a topic through really in depth. So I love just doing these kinds of videos. So if this was useful, then please also hit the subscribe button, click like on the video, and I see you next time.